What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning into another video of mine. Again, I always appreciate those who have taken the time to either comment, share, subscribe. Looks like I'm up to 89 subscribers right now. So, I just want to say that means a lot to me. Those of you who have chosen to add me to your list of content that you enjoy on YouTube or on social media. And really, I am thankful for those of you who have listened and tuned in. It's hard to put yourself out there. And I decided just to go for it. And that actually has a little bit to do with, or it's actually really right along the lines of what I'm going to talk about today. Right? How we can actually force ourselves, right? And I know using that terminology, force, it's a little aggressive. But really, in some instances, forcing ourselves to do certain things is helpful. And so we're going to talk about how to force ourselves to fail. And I know that sounds funny and it sounds counterproductive, but I'll break it down a little bit more throughout this video as far as what I mean. And this is going to be a little bit different from the last video that I made, as I'm really just, want to share some stories from my personal life and how this has applied and how I'm applying it now. And, suggestions for you and how you might be able to apply it as well. But before I start, again, I just want to thank all of those who have tuned in. Please share with your friends if you feel like my videos have value, if you feel like my content is helpful. I'd love to reach as many as I can. And again, I have my links there in the description where you can donate to my channel. Again, that's optional. Nothing that I want anybody ever to feel pressure on. It does help me as I intend to be consistent and consistently recording these videos and consistently creating more content. It is helpful, right? So if you have PayPal, if you can, I have a link for Buy Me a Coffee, which just it's a really creative way to donate. But anyway, that's an option for those of you who are watching. It's not, again, nothing that you have to do or I want you to feel like you have to do, but it does help me out. So, now down to what I wanted to talk about today, right? How can we force ourselves to fail, and why is that helpful? Well, most of us, or let me say many of us, because we've got some, there's some amazing people out there, right? And shout out to you guys. But most of us are deathly afraid of failure, right? I mean, many of us are deathly afraid of failure. Sorry. Many of us are afraid, right? We'll even avoid trying things in the first place to in order to avoid that eventuality, right? And some of it comes from a place where we've either experienced that, maybe we had a really embarrassing moment, or something humiliating happened, and it scared us. We look at it as it was a failure. I failed, and I don't ever want to feel that again. It's understandable. But you also have to understand this. We have to understand this, that if we're afraid of failure, it's almost impossible for us, because I don't want to say anything's impossible, because there's always exceptions to the rule. But for the most part, it's going to be impossible for us to grow. It's going to be impossible for us to succeed. And if we have any dreams, we have any goals, any desires that are beyond our current state or beyond where we're at right now, we're not going to achieve those, right? In all likelihood, again, there's always an exception to the rule. But in all likelihood, we're not going to get there if we're deathly afraid of failure. And I like the analogy of the baby, right? Like when we have your babies are a certain age, they start to crawl, they start to walk, and we understand this as just a part of life. I remember when my oldest son, when he first started to walk, take a few steps, fall, take a few steps, fall. And what kind of a ridiculous person would I have been if I was getting on my son for falling, trying to walk? That doesn't make any sense. Of course he's gonna fall. He doesn't know how to do it. He's never tried it before. He's trying it for the first time. And I'm happy that he's trying. And we look at it and we say, oh, that's a good thing, but we can't seem to apply that to us. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, we can't seem to apply that to ourselves. And, you know, we're so afraid to fail. And sometimes that fear can actually cause us to perform less well than when we actually do attempt something. So what's worse than not trying something is trying something, and because we're paralyzed with fear, because we're afraid to fail, we kind of do it halfway. I don't really want to try my hardest. I don't really want to go all the way. And you know, there's a great quote here from the legendary actor Jackie Chan. He's legendary stuntman, action, you know, hero actor. He's got some pretty crazy scenes in some of his movies. But he says it's not doing a stunt. It's not doing a stunt or not doing a stunt that leads to injury. It's half doing a stunt. So he says it's not whether you don't do it or you do it. If you do it halfway, you're in trouble. Right? Like, if you're going to do it all the way. And that's where we want to get. That's where we want to get to the point where whatever it is that we want to try, whatever it is that we want to go after, whatever it is, whatever attempt that it is that we want to make. All right. And now this channel is it comes from a place of me wanting to help others along their process, because I'm in a similar process where I am expecting myself. I expect from myself to grow, right? To be in a position to grow, to get better. I have dreams, I have goals, I have things that I'm pursuing. And I want to help those who are like-minded and who want to have those things as well. Maybe you're not quite sure how to work through those things. It can be overwhelming. So that's what I'm here for. Doesn't mean that I, you know, think everybody should think this way. And maybe I haven't made that clear enough on my channel that, you know, although I do want to see the most excellent version of myself come about, I know that there are people who are content and really just don't really understand why they should even look for those things. Or, you know, I have friends like that I talk about goals, future, progress, things that I'm working on, things that I want to do eventually. And, you know, not that they're not necessarily against it. They just kind of really don't get it. Like, to them, it's like, well, I'm pretty content. I'm good. And hey, you know, at the end of the day, we're all people. We get to make our own decisions, our own choices. We get to choose what we want to do. Okay, this is my choice. And what I'm saying on this channel is, if this is your choice as well, or you want to make that your choice, I want to help you. Okay? So what can we do then? How can we force ourselves to fail? I know it kind of sounds weird. It's just kind of weird, right? But let me give you a practical example from my life, right? When I was a little kid, when I was little, right? I was scared of fast rides. I was scared of roll. I mean, I was afraid, right, to get on these rides. And I had an older sister who was fearless. It didn't bother her to jump off the high dive, right? It didn't bother her to get on roller coasters. And so I would see her and I was like, man, like, you know, she's brave, right? And shout out to my sister, because she's amazing. And she's always been that. Well, one day me and her were at an amusement park, and we're at Disneyland, and I was about 7 years old. And I remember that day, I don't know if we talked, I don't remember everything, but for whatever reason, I decided, you know what? I'm going to get on a roller coaster, right? I'm going to get on Space Mountain. If you've never been to Disneyland, Space Mountain's like, you know, one of the staples, right? It's been there for a long time. And it's a roller coaster. So I remember that day, and I remember I told my sister, all right, let's get on. I'm going to go with you. So of course we're in line, and I'm nervous, scared. And of course, you know, if you've never been there, as you get closer, you know, you get inside, you start to hear the noise, right? You start to hear the rumbling of the roller coaster, and it's loud. And then you hear people screaming, and you're like, oh man, you know, I'm 7 years old. Like, what am I getting into? What am I doing? And of course I had thoughts of just getting out of line and going back out. You know, I think I was there with my grandparents, and, you know, just, you know what, I'm done. I'm good. Right. But I stuck it out. And let me tell you, I got on that ride. nervous as heck. It starts going. I started getting nervous, but I'm like, oh, it's too late now. I'm already here. As soon as we hit that first hill, all that nervousness, all that fear turned into excitement. I was having the time of my life. I wanted to get on like 20 times more after that. And this is ideal. This is what we want to do in our lives. We want to be like 7-year-old Josh, who's just going to go for it. You're just going to do it. You're going to be afraid. You're going to be afraid to fail. And you're just going to do it anyway. And guess what? You might fail. We might fail. But you know what you're going to learn when you fail? It actually wasn't that bad. It actually wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't the end of the world. And what that's going to do for us, it's going to give us the courage to try more things. It's going to give us the courage to go for it. Public speaking, okay, a good example here. Public speaking is, I mean, some people rather get in a fight than public speak, right? I mean, than speak in public, right? I mean, it's nerve-wracking. You've got all these eyes on you. You've got people looking at you. And I have a ton of experience public speaking, right? I've been a professor. I even shared at my grandfather's funeral, and there was a lot. It was a packed house. And it doesn't matter how many times you do it. It's nerve-wracking. So everybody's nervous. And that's the other thing. You're not the only one that's afraid of failure. Everyone is. Everybody's nervous. Don't think that just because you see me here putting myself out there, that I'm just this super confident, I have no fears. That's just not true. I'm just not letting those things get in my way. And sure, I'm going to come up against some more things. Because here's the thing about Josh. Here's the thing about me, about living to learn. This is what it's about. I'm living to learn. So I'm going to continue to move forward. I'm going to continue to grow. I'm going to continue to put myself in new places. And there's going to come with it a lot of things. Discomfort. I'm going to be afraid. I'm going to think I can't do it. That's normal. That's normal. What is the difference then between those of us who haven't yet stepped out and tried yet, and those who we look at and say, wow, I can't believe the things they do. Wow, I can't believe what they've been able to accomplish. Oh man, that's a special person. You know what? They are, but you know what? So are you. You know what you have in common with that person? You have a heart, you have a brain, you have eyes, you have lungs, you have feelings. Do we get it now? They're just people like me and you who decided, right? They decided that they were not going to allow the fear of failure to hold them back from going forward, from trying something. Okay? It could be anything, right? What do we do? Okay, so if you're afraid, if you have a fear of public speaking, what are you going to do? Well, in all honesty, the only thing you can do is you can find opportunities for yourself to speak in public. That could be at a meeting at work. Okay, it doesn't have to be extreme. You don't have to go, you don't have to go stand on a building and get crazy and draw this attention to you. You don't need to do all that. Okay, but start with little things. Maybe at work, in a work meeting, you never say anything. The next work meeting, speak up. Raise your hand 10 times. Like, overdo it. Overdo it. See what happens. See what happens. You might not feel that bad. I guarantee you it's not going to be as bad as you're setting yourself up to think that it is. Right? Some of us are afraid to be alone. Right? And really, forcing our failures is really facing our fears. Okay? Forcing ourselves to fail is really facing our fears. Right? Some of us don't want to be alone. So what do you do then? Find opportunities to spend time alone. You don't got to go hide out in the mountains for 2 weeks. Again, we don't need to overdo it. And I think that's the other thing too, is we get overwhelmed. We think like, man, I have to just go all the way. Oh man, if I go back to school, I gotta sign up for 12, 16 units, and I gotta go all in, and I'm afraid. No. Take small steps. Take small steps. If you're afraid to fail at school, you're afraid to go back to school because you were never a good student, or in your mind you're like, I suck at school. I've never been good at it. Sign up for a class. You know, in fact, they have websites now where you can get college level courses for free, right? You pay for a certification if you want it. So there you go. Sign yourself up for a class and go for it. And it's free. So, I mean, it's like, you know, what do we have to lose? Like, honestly, what do we have to lose? What do we have to lose? This is an internal thing. This is a mindset thing. And see, the mind is going to mess with us. It's going to tell us things based on the information that it's received thus far. We've got to tell our mind, like, no, I know the information you've gotten thus far. I know how I've been programmed. I know what I've been scripted to think and do and my limitations and so on and so forth. But you know what? No, I'm going to push myself. I'm going to push myself. And come to find out that even if I do fail, it wasn't that bad. And I learned from it. And I found out things and learned things about myself that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to learn or understand or know or find out if I hadn't put myself in that position. Now, I listened to this podcast not that long ago, and I can't recall her name off the top of my head, and I'm sorry because I do want to give her credit. In fact, I'm going to find out next video. I will shout her out because it was an amazing podcast. She talked about how she would try to set goals and she continued to fail. She continued to fail. And she came to a place where she discovered that the reason she was failing to accomplish these goals is that she hadn't given herself a reason to believe that she was actually that person who could accomplish those things. You see what I'm saying? We need evidence to convince our minds, to convince ourselves that, you know what, I'm actually that person. There's evidence here. There's evidence here that shows that I could actually do this. That I could actually be a business owner. That I could actually create content. That I could actually write a book. Right? And I'm speaking to you personally from my experience, from my process now. From things that I'm experiencing now. Right? What will be my hypothesis test? What will I do to find out, right? How do we overcome these things? Because they can be overcome if we choose, right? Again, at the end of the day, it's up to us. But the thing, when we're afraid of something, it's often failing at that thing that we're afraid of, right? Relationships, meeting new people, getting new opportunities, putting yourself out there. You know what? I'm really grateful for my background in sales. Do you know how hard it is to cold call? Do you know what cold calling does? Do you know what cold calling does for you if you continue to do it? The fear goes away. You're no longer afraid. It's just part of it. It just comes with it. So we can practice our failure. We can give it a go. Right? You find that person attractive when you go to the gym or to the mall or wherever you show up regularly, or maybe at work or wherever you're at, and I don't know, you know, what if they're taken? There's only one way to find out, right? And guess what? If that doesn't work out, right? Just try again. Once we get that worst case scenario out of the way, and we look and we say, hey, I'm still alive, I'm still here, I'm okay, we'll be able to go on and succeed and thrive. That's a fact. So let's purposely fail. Let's purposely do it. Let's go for it. Let's just do it. I mean, you fail, so what? You learned. And again, this is not something we're going to get overnight. But the smallest steps, I'm telling you. And I'll share this again before I close about my experience with the gym, right? I've always been intimidated to going to the gym. Right? I've always been intimidated because I didn't feel like I was strong enough, or like, like, oh man, I should be like this, or, or do I know what I'm doing? All these questions. But you know what? I finally just started going. Now, they're not going to be putting me on the cover of Men's Magazine tomorrow, okay? That's reality. But guess what? I'm going 3 to 4 times a week for 30 to 45 minutes a day. And if I'm consistent at that, I'm going to continue to feel better, to get better, to look better. And I've already started to feel some of the results. And I've already learned things about lifting weights, about my, my body, about nutrition, things that I never would have known if I didn't do it. If I would have just been afraid, if I would have stayed scared, like, oh man, I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna look, I'm not gonna see the results, or they're not happening fast enough. We need to learn to shut those voices up in our minds. And you know what? If we can't shut them up, we just do it anyway. We just do it anyway. Face your fears. No failure will ever seem quite so bad again. That's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lead by example. That's what this is about. That's what these videos are about. That's what this whole idea of me coaching and starting my... Never been a business owner. Never been a content creator. Never been on YouTube. Here I am. Going for it. I'm going for it. I've already learned so much about myself. I've already gained so much just from this short time, just from this experience, that for me it's been worth it. Even up to this point, it's been worth it. Let's do it. Let's face it. Face your fears. No failure will ever seem quite so bad again. Thanks for watching.